I just get in my own head, and I think everybody does, because like you have whether or not you're trying to be someone different on social media or not, like you're not always that person regardless of it. You know what I mean? And I think like everyone might think I'm like a happy go-getter all the time. You know what I mean? But like I have the mornings where I'm just like grogging, looking at my phone for probably like 3 hours. You know what I mean? Like when you're like, what am I doing? Like what am I doing right now? You know, it's like the productivity or whatever. But it's like I think we're all trying to work on ourselves and be better.
Micah Diele, thanks for joining me on the Knockin Doorz Down there, pal.
Oh, yeah, of course, man. I like to see the studio, everything. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Micah, the host of the Central Valley podcast right here in our home area. And it's funny because we were talking beforehand, and I've known you for what, like a year?
Yeah, I think it's been like, when did you guys come on the podcast? Do you remember?
It was like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, it was pretty. I think because I've been doing my podcast for, it'll be 2 years in next February.
Okay.
But I think you guys came on sometime in like the spring of last year.
Sounds right. And so I never knew, like, I knew your last name, but I didn't know your last name. So I was like, okay, somebody I knew said it deal, and you're like, no, it's like a pasta.
Pasta, Diele, rigatoni, and just anything Italian.
But why I want to sit and share a talk with people, you know, one of the things that I enjoyed, and I think why we've become friends is.
Are we? I'm just kidding.
I'm
just kidding.
Acquaintances.
No, we're friends, for sure.
Yeah, you know, hey, we don't jump in the same bed together.
We're for sure. Yeah. Well, and I always tell like the other people who do podcasts, like us podcast guys got to stick together, man. Right. Especially in the Valley, there's like not a lot of us.
No. But what I enjoyed about meeting you, talking with you, and then our text messages back and forth, because nobody talks on the phone anymore, especially busy people, is you have a real intent for positivity.
Yeah, I try to. I'm a very positive person. I try to relay that to the world, at least.
Right. Yeah, because your last episode, you had your wife Lindsay on.
And we had to cut some parts out of it because we were
really.
Well, we were just going back and forth. Like we were just laughing though, because like we were just like it had been a long day and we were together all day, and then we ended it with the podcast, and so it was just funny. Yeah.
but she even made or you made a reference. Yep, gonna keep it positive. Where and why? Like, where did a positive mindset of things come for you?
That's a good question.
Like, was mom and dad positive?
Yeah, I would say my parents were for sure definitely positive. I always look at the bright side type of deal. But I think like just in general, anytime I was around people growing up, people were like, "Oh, you're always laughing. Like you're always having a good time."
Right.
And so that's why I was always just like it just kind of stemmed from that. And I like to joke around and laugh. Like I like to laugh like a lot, and I like to let other people laugh. And so I think just whether like I was never, so when I was growing up, it's just like kind of like that, you know, throughout high school and stuff like that. And it's more of like I'm pretty reserved if you don't know me, and which is to a certain extent. But if I'm in public with 5 of my best friends, like I am like a different animal, you know what I mean? I'm not as reserved. But once I get comfortable, I just like to see people laugh, see people smile, see if people have a good time. So I don't know where it came from, but what kind of through the podcast, when I started the podcast, I wanted to bring that same attitude towards the Central Valley, towards Merced, towards things that maybe had gotten a bad rep or didn't make people laugh or smile. You know what I mean? Like try to change that stigma. And so that's kind of what led into the podcast. And what I want to show people is like, hey, you can have a great time no matter where you're at. It's not about that. It's about the people you're with. You know? Yeah.
Well, and I think that's very valuable. You know, for the people that don't know where we live, it has been a pretty dilapidated part of California.
Yeah.
It's had some economic issues. I remember when I first moved to the area, the housing boom was going, and once, you know, radio was rocking and rolling, and once that crashed, man, it was shit, and it was hard, and it's still not totally recovered, and this area has been through that before because we have what's called Castle Air Base here for people as an Air Force base. One of my cousins was actually born there.
Oh, okay.
And when it closed...
And Ray Allen was born there.
That's right.
Fun fact, you guys.
Ray Allen.
Ray Allen, yeah.
Ray, give us a call.
Come on, Central Valley Podcast. So Knockin Doorz Down.
Yeah, so when it closed, so there's been some things, we're right near Yosemite and stuff, but we are literally labeled the gateway to Yosemite.
Yeah,
so it's like, just pass through here real quick.
Yeah, exactly. And
else.
I think what kind of revamped, the area is like you're saying, we had the Air Force Base, you know what I mean? And then whenever the UC was established, UC Merced, I think like 2005-ish or something like that. Like, I feel like now we're seeing the effects after the UC's been somewhere for almost 20 years, you know what I mean? And so the town is getting a little more lively. Things are getting a little more lively. And the thing that I loved about the Central Valley is that, like, during the pandemic, like, a lot of things kind of for big cities were like completely changed, completely different. Ours wasn't as heightened as all of theirs, you know what I mean? And like when we came out of it, I felt like everyone was just a lot more appreciative, a little more like just happy to be out, a little more like I don't know if this is right, but
I don't think the mass media did hold the same reflection that it did here.
Yeah, I got it like not too long ago for the
same.
first time, and I was just like, oh,
same.
Put me that brain fog though. I didn't. I was like, well, people were saying that, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? And then I got it, and I was like, just like I watched just 4 seasons of Ozark. That's all I did because me and my wife both got COVID. And I was like, you want to try this? Watch this Ozark. She's like, I don't think I'll be into it. And then we just watched like so many hours, like 100 hours of it.
Yeah, but to your point though. The mentality was get back to community as quickly as possible. Because people ask me, hey, you've opened up now about falling off during the pandemic. Luckily, it was a short instance, but it was that lack of community. I've realized now, lately, I've been getting out. I've been talking to more people. Like, I need a sense of community.
Oh, definitely.
So I think our drive here with it, even though small town, people will have their perception. Yes, pretty conservative to a certain extent, but quite liberal and open at the same time.
Exactly. It's a good mix. It's a good balance because I feel like when you go to the bigger cities, what you do have is you have like a one-sided ideal, basically, where it's like things need to be talked about. Like there's good points on the left, there's good points on the right, there's good points everywhere. You know what I mean? And so it's about being able to have those conversations, and that's why I like living in this area is that we have a good both sides where people talk about things.
Sure.
If you have an opinion about something, you'll share it, and the other person might have a different opinion. You can listen to it, but it's like you need to be able to have those conversations, and I think that's like really important. You know what I mean? In person,
not when you're a keyboard warrior.
Yeah, because
everybody's brave,
and that's what the pandemic showed me too. Is because like I was like, you watch the news and you think everything's like crazy, and then like as soon as like everything calmed down a little bit, I stopped watching the news, and it's just like if you don't watch the news, like your stress and anxiety go down like a good amount. Right? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Right. I think when you get conversations with real people that have real knowledge, it changes it greatly.
Yeah.
I know that for me it was that I'm like, I had a friend. My parents are always watching the news. Well, then you don't watch the news because you're a paranoid individual as is. Like, oh, everybody's going to die.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it sucks. Yes, we lost a lot of people, but damn, it's like, no, not everybody. Well, perfectly healthy people. Like, I find that hard to reason a perfectly healthy person.
Yeah, exactly. But like you were saying, a sense of community, right? Yeah. And so you're saying like the community... Like what we have is we do have a good community, and something I never even thought about too much how important community is until I started doing the podcast. So it wasn't until like episode like 10, 15, 20 that I was just like, oh, it's cool because like I'm having these conversations with people who like I would never normally sit down with and have like an hour-long conversation, asking them basically their why. You ask people their why. And that so it was like interesting to me to like sit down, talk to these people, and just the reoccurring subject that came up was community. And it wasn't until I think like episode like 30-ish basically where I was like, dang, like each time I'm having a conversation with somebody, community gets brought up like naturally, and just how everybody is longing for that. Everyone likes the idea of community. And so that's what I hope to do with the podcast is like have a community behind it that wants to talk about the good things in the area, because we have like different news things and stuff like that don't always highlight the good areas, like 209 Times, I like the idea of it and everything like that, but it's always just like a car on fire. It's like some bad. What's the bad stuff? The murders, the corruption and stuff like that. It's like, well, what about the good stuff? You know what I mean? You can't like, and it's like, I want to just highlight just the good things, because like we could talk about the bad stuff all day long about anything. You know what I mean? But it's like, what makes something good? It's like you have to think, why do I like this thing? Why does it bring value? And it's those questions, when you're why, you start learning more about things. You start trying to get to people's like what drives them. You know what I mean?
Well, let's jump back to little Mike, because I always find everybody's story, we all start with childhood. Because I know for me, hey, radio is like hearing the, Dr. Demento or whoever it was, and eventually Howard Stern. My brother lived in the Bay Area, was sending me tapes, if I remember, so I could listen. He did what? Oh, yeah. But so tell me about little guy. What was little Micah like?
Dude, I always tell people I felt like I was raised in like I was. Like, I don't think my parents sheltered me, but I was just like so like sheltered as a kid. Like going into like high school, I didn't know like what to expect. And my sister was like there trying to like hey, like your first high school dance, you're gonna be like grinding, like like stuff like that, where like I had to explain it to me. But growing up, I grew up like in, I would say it's like a white picket fence neighborhood kind of ideal, like McSwain area for those people in the area.
So this is like the nice ranchy property.
Yeah, it's like everyone has like an acre basically, an acre backyard and front yard, or not backyard and front yard, but total property, and then there's a lot more room and stuff like that. But was raised there, went to McSwain growing up, then I went to Buhack, and then in college, like everyone, like it's like one of those things where like I feel like I went to high school, sorry, and in high school I always think like, what do I want to be when I grow up, you know what I mean? Right. And like I didn't think about that till my senior year for the last 6 months. You know what I mean? Like that's when I was like, oh, I guess I should start thinking about what I'm going to do with the rest of my life, you know what I mean? And so graduated from high school, didn't know what I was doing, enrolled in JC, changed my major.
Sounds familiar.
5-6 times, basically. I was like,
hey, to make you feel good, I went to college for 7.5 years.
Hey,
I'm
to make you feel better, I also went to college for about that long.
Okay. I know. We could both be doctors.
Yeah. Right? We could, but I have a bachelor's.
Yeah. I know. I got like 3 degrees that I can basically qualify to go, would you like fries with that?
Yeah, exactly. So and college is a good time to where like, what do you want to do? So you're experimenting with it. You're also having a good time with your friends and stuff like that. And so eventually I'm just going to I guess I'm giving you, you said jump back to your childhood. I'm already in college.
You fast forward.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't remember too much of my childhood, honestly.
Really? I'm kind of the same way.
Like I remember, and I'll have like random visions and stuff, but like, or not visions, but like memories. But it's like when someone asks me about it, I'm like, I don't, like, what do you want to hear? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm always like, yeah, like I tell you the schools I went to, but I don't like to tell you like, yeah. I mean,
I can vaguely remember like this kid, that kid. I'll have people that'll jog my memory and stuff like that. But yeah, because kind of, I mean, my story coming from a background, had a home with my father was an addict, drugs and sex. I mean, which. Hey, folks listening, I did record a podcast with my dad. I just haven't been able to release it yet because fucking after I recorded it, I broke down. To hear my dad's story, oh, dude, it was tough.
Damn.
It was tough because it's a lineage of stuff.
Yeah, so exactly. It goes on for well, that's what addiction kind of go generational, right? Like,
and trauma.
Yeah,
I mean,
trauma.
Come on, people that go, generational trauma is
like
bullshit.
Hurt people, right? That's a quote. Like, you know what I mean? And that's like, it's just like so true. Whether it's like people don't know, like there's no handbook on this is how you handle your emotions, your feelings, anything after whatever it may have happened.
Did you ever struggle with that when you were young? I did.
Yeah. So struggle with what exactly? Sorry, like just
just your emotions.
Yeah. So basically, not when I was younger necessarily, but my freshman or sophomore year of college, I got prescribed Adderall, and so I basically like, and it was like, I felt like I was ADD, and my mom was like all for it, like, yeah, like let's see if like you are. So I took like some tests online, and it was like, yeah, like you're ADD basically. But it's just because my mind's always all over the place, and like I for sure still am. And then so I was like, she's like, do you want to try to get medication for it? And I'm like, okay, sure. Yeah, I'm down. So we go to the doctor. I just print out my little paper that like I took online. And then we're talking to it. And I think because my mom was there, the doctor was taking me more seriously versus like just a kid trying to get Adderall or something.
Because you're what, 18, 19?
Yeah, but right around that age. And so the doctor was like, yeah, we're going to start you off on like 10 milligrams, and then we can go from there. And then basically, and like when I first took it, like I feel like I would maybe possibly still be taking it if I was only like prescribed like 5 milligrams, right?
Sure.
But like the thing with like Adderall is that people prescribe so much and like such a high dose. And so, and I'd done so many school projects, because after I stopped taking Adderall, I did a lot of school projects based on like the over prescription of Adderall and ADHD. Because like, so back to my story, I was like prescribed 10 milligrams, and it was like 10 milligrams a day. And then he was like, take like 2 one day and just to see if you like it. And like, Adderall,
if you like it.
Well, like if you feel like you need it, I guess that's probably what he said. But like, yeah, but Adderall is like basic. I mean, it's like low key meth. You know what I mean? It's an amphetamine. And it makes you, it's an upper. It makes you feel good, basically. And so, like, I take 2 of them, and I'm like, well, yeah, I feel good. like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So then I was like taking 20 milligrams a day, and then they do this thing where it's like every 2 months or a month, or like, do you want to like up it again? And I'm like, and then it went from like taking 20 milligrams a day to 30 milligrams a day. So it was like 2 15-milligram pills, which like. During it, like, I never saw a problem with it. Like, I was like, oh, I'm super productive. I'm, like, I'm doing things. And then, like, the thing that Adderall does, that it makes you lack empathy for people. So, like, you're so focused on whatever you're doing that somebody tells you something, and maybe it's, like, a heartbreaking story. You're like, okay, like, so what, kind of. Like, and that's the thing that
that's scary.
Yeah, scary that I started realizing about it. And it was, like, I had a past relationship, basically, and that I think really probably affected it in a way that like during it I didn't really notice it at all, but it was like during whenever that relationship ended is when I decided to quit Adderall cold turkey, basically, which is like literally what you're not supposed to do. For everybody listening, that's like not what you do, but like it was almost like I just needed to like feel again, honestly. And I think that so basically it was like me taking it for I think 2 maybe 3 years. I probably took it, and I wasn't like taking 30 milligrams every single day, because even I was like I gotta like do some days off of it. But it's one of those weird ones where it's like even if you're not taking it, it almost feels like there's leftover stuff from like,
it's sitting in your system.
Yeah, exactly. Because it releases like your endorphins or something like that.
I don't remember what Adderall, because you brought it up when we were talking via text about it, because I think I told you same age that you were. I was on Prozac.
Yeah. So what is Prozac? Is it different upper?
Antidepressant. So it's an SSRI. So it's the serotonin and
serotonin. That's what it releases. Yeah, it like opens it up so you get more of your.
Yeah, I think what it is. God, I wish we had a doctor on this show. So it's something about your serotonin reuptake. So it's like, think of it like download, upload. Mm-hmm. So it limits it, or it's something along those lines. So it just for me, I found kind of the thing too, like I was always feeling good, so I was never in a point of like something was bad.
Yeah, exactly.
And, and I had a relationship at the time, and beautiful person, lady, inside and out. But then it was like even losing interest, and I don't mean like in the relationship, but like when she would give you that wink, it was like. Yeah, whatever. No, I'm
that's
good.
The chase too.
And it's like you're 19, and you're in a committed relationship, and that's a part of the relationship. There should be an interest. So it's just like certain things. It's like you become so focused or into whatever you're doing that you kind of lose the thought for other people, honestly. And like that's the one thing. Even like during it, I was aware of like, I'm like. It's like more like, I got to deal with this versus like, I should care about how this person feels or something. You know what I mean? And so like, it was like little things like that. And it was like, I think, like I said, probably like 2 years-ish, maybe 2.5 into it. And then I was kind of like I was self-aware of what it was doing and how I was just like becoming addicted to it, basically. And like, what's felt like more of an addiction versus to something I need, you know what I mean? And so that's when I was like, okay, like, I want to jump on this now. And I was like it was like towards the end of that other relationship where like there was like so many things that happened in the past that I could probably translate to like not it wasn't that I didn't care, but just lacking the empathy to even talk to somebody or to go through things with them. And like it was kind of coming to an end, and then I was just like, oh, well, I'm just going to quit this cold turkey then. Like I just was tired. I was done with it. And then like the first week afterwards, I remember like
I was like, man, I kind of feels like I'm still on it. Like, I don't feel like, you know what I mean? And then it kind of like your emotions start to come in waves, and it's just like I was dealing with a relationship that wasn't good at the time, trying to mend that while also mending on my body's addiction that I had with it. And so it was like an interesting time for me. Like, I was like breaking down, crying.
Did it feel a physical withdrawal too?
Yeah, but I don't know. It was like physical in the sense of like just my emotions and like depression more of, but not like physical as in. Well, actually, now that you say that, there was this weird thing that would happen when I tried to work out while I was on Adderall, and it was like I feel like because I hadn't been working out at that time. I started working out after I stopped taking Adderall. But for I would work out a couple times with my friends, and I forget what it is, but it's like this lactic acid buildup, and I'm pretty sure something with I don't know what it is with the Adderall, but it was like I worked out like once, not even that hard, but like hard for like never working out. You know what I mean? And what happened is like my muscles like almost literally got swollen from here all the way to like my arm, and like I couldn't even bend my elbows.
It's almost like a gout type of situation.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just the fact that like I think whatever the buildup is and the things that like the Adderall had done to me, it was just like it was like a weird like, and that was the only thing. And it was like, I give it a break for like 2 weeks, and then I was fine, or a week, you know what I mean? But it was like that next day I was like, oh my gosh, like what's wrong with me? And the doctor's like, yeah, like I mean, like they kind of like explained it like oh yeah, it's kind of like a buildup, like it's no more normal than you think type of deal. But yeah, it was.
It's not normal.
No, not normal. But you know what I mean. Like he was like yeah, exactly. But so that was the only physical thing. But it was more emotional of it. And it was just like me. Like I remember breaking down to my parents multiple times, basically, and just like trying to deal with like these emotions that I had been suppressing, basically. And that's what I feel like Adderall does. It suppresses your feelings. It suppresses your emotions to where you might not think about things, and then when you're off of it, it's like you kind of realize like all the times you might have felt like an asshole or felt like a douchebag or didn't care. And it's not even just to like, it's not even just like the relationship. It's just like other things in general in life. You know what I mean? And so I remember quitting, and like it was like probably like 2-3 months of like heavy withdrawals of it. You know what I mean? And it was just like kind of like the realization of like, okay, like, how do I get back to just like functioning normal? And it was like I was never like we were talking about earlier, like I was always a happy person, super happy, and Adderall kind of made me like a little more serious, which is not bad to a certain extent, but to where like it was like I needed more to feed my serotonin levels, basically. So like I got that from probably taking the pills, and it was like really wear it out. But then by the time like hour 6 comes in of me have taken it, like I'm almost like a zombie type deal, you know what I mean? And so it just like for me it was like the realization of what it was doing to me, and I'm thankful that I could even have the self-realization to do that, because I know a lot of people can. They might double up, triple up on their pills and stuff like that. And that's why I was just like I kind of saw where it was going, you know what I mean? And so I was just like, okay, like and I don't know what age I was, maybe 23, 24, something around that age is like when this was all happening. And then, but I'm honestly like very grateful that I did have that experience of the withdrawals and the depression and going through it. And even though you're not supposed to do it the way that I did it, like, and I think that was the depression part of it. It was like, that's where I was like, man. And I think that it was more because I was going through a breakup at the time versus like, you know what I mean? It was just everything compiling on top of it, you know what I mean? And so, but I look back and I'm grateful for it because it come to help me grow as a person and to know things, to know. It just taught me a lot about myself because it was a lot of reflection during that time of me not taking it, or of the when I first started to stop taking it, like reflection and like, yeah, I might have been sad, might have been depressed, but like I have like such a good group of friends around me that like I couldn't have a better support system around me. Basically, I'm best friends with like the same 12 dudes that I've known since I was like 6-7 years old, and then like. Or it was like I know 6 of them from that age, and then I met another 4 in high school, and then I met like another 2 right after high school. But it's like I've known everybody minimum 10 years now. You know what I mean? So it's so cool to like have a group around you, and I think that that's most important is just having a support system. And
absolutely.
And it wasn't like I was talking to them like about my anything, like I wasn't like that open with them about like they all knew what I was going through, and they were just like, oh, okay, like we're just there for me, and we just hung out and had a good time. And it wasn't like, it was more of just help me have a distraction versus it's like you don't always like some people think like when you're dealing with something you need to talk about it and talk it out, and yes, certain things to a certain extent, but sometimes it's just like they just want somebody there. You just want somebody present. Like even if there's just a body in a room or watching TV, it's like maybe that makes me feel better than, you know what I mean?
I'm absolutely one of those people. I like a not that I don't like my alone time, which I get very rarely anymore. It's kind of
now you kind of look you fantasize back to some alone time. Now
it's kind of like my drive, for my other job. It's about an hour each way, but. Girlfriend, we live together, kids with us all the time, my kids, and which is great. I love it, but that alone. But I do like that sense of community, and sometimes you're right. Sometimes it's just as simple as a coffee and shooting shit and talking around ideas. Exactly. Sometimes it is the opening,
the serious talk, the real talk.
Yeah,
my old show, Real Talk and Whatnot.
Real Talk and Whatnot. We're talking about real things: dogs, daughters, lofts, wives, I don't know, whatnot.
Fuck you.
But for me, sometimes it is. But I had to learn. Because I was a person that I treated everyone as I wanted to be treated, and that wasn't always the right thing to do. So I've had to learn as I get older, create a boundary, know the buffer of who I can and can't talk about. Like, here I'll open up because fuck it, you want to jam me at for this show when I'm trying to share things and other people are sharing things and it's real to help people?
Like, go ahead, talk shit if you want to, but like that's more about your character than my character.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
And I'm fine. Oh, where was that? Hey, it was at 43 minutes into the podcast. Here you go. Listen, tell everybody, share it with everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it was. I thank you for sharing that though too.
Yeah, because I was telling you before the podcast, like I've never actually talked about it. Like everybody who knows me. I probably have told them that. Like, and it's probably super casual. Like, hey, yeah, I used to take Adderall all the time. Like something like, you know what I mean, like super chill about it. But I've never talked about it like actually like in a way that's like I was addicted to it. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things when you look back, you're like almost like. You cringe or you wish you weren't, you know what I mean? But I think it's good to show people, because like I'm open on my podcast about a lot of things. It's just like this has never naturally came up on my podcast, and I totally would have talked about it if I was talking to somebody else about something that related to it, but I never had the opportunity. And like, so it's cool to be able to talk about things, and like we're talking about vulnerability on like whether it's on your platform, on your show. It's hard to be vulnerable because you're afraid of what people are going to say. You're afraid of what people are going to
I used to be.
Yeah, exactly. And like what the podcast has told me is like, obviously you don't care too much. Like I've just been like going ham being myself, and like I get better feedback when it's like, sometimes I'll put something in the episode where I'm like, should I take that out? Maybe not. And someone's like, oh, I was dying laughing at that part. And I'm like, oh, cool.
Well,
like,
that's the thing I connected with.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the vulnerability, because I had told you, and I don't recollect talking about it here, but Prozac at 19, and and for me there was a physical withdrawal kind of feeling.
So what was that like?
Oh, and at night trying to sleep, I'd get tremors like in my legs and stuff.
Really?
Yeah, because and another reason it was helpful to talk to you, because I started taking Wellbutrin, which is an antidepressant, anti-anxiety, but it's not an SSRI.
And what is the SSRI?
So it doesn't affect, it's not this serotonin and that part. So Wellbutrin, my understanding, is only helps with the dopamine area, which chronic depression since I was 15, 16 years old. Things like that. So the doctor went, hey, we're going to try it really, really low. And the good thing about Wellbutrin is some people will just take it seasonally. So if it's winter, there's people that just have depression during winter or whatever, and there's no like withdrawal kind of side effect to it. It doesn't kick in as quick.
And do you know what it does? Like it's like a mood booster, but I guess I just don't know. I've never.
My understanding is it helps with dopamine production, so it kind of ups it. But I guess I could Google and look at
it. I know you got to get a Jamie in here, huh?
Yeah, right. Get a doctor.
That's what I got a Duffy.
Yeah,
he just looks up stuff, and I'm like, this is. Like, I'll be like reading stuff. I'm like, I hope this is right. Like,
I know. I need a control panel person.
Yeah.
But, I wanted to bring it up so that kind of in that stigma around it, we've had past guests. One that I can think of, a guy that's become a buddy, Tim Lodgen, bipolar, now in sobriety, takes the medication. He's a bodybuilder guy, grandpa, but awesome. I mean, geez, blowing up on Instagram of people because he's a really inspirational guy, but honest and vulnerable about that. So I think it's important, especially, men, we carry a little bit more of the stigma. We got to be this or that or whatever it is, which leads me to my next part.
What is the next part?
So, and if you don't want to go here
No, go
too
ahead.
much,
Go ahead.
but you did a great episode recently with your wife Lindsay on your show, which I just loved, and it didn't feel like a married couple, which I think is cool.
Yeah, well, you should see. I'm like, bro. That's how I talk to her.
Yeah, because she was like, dude.
Yeah.
Not like babe. It was like,
It wasn't like that. There's not pet. I mean, we do have pet names and stuff like that.
Sure.
But yeah, go on. Sorry. Yeah.
But it's really fascinating to me to have you have a relationship. And now I think for the first time in a long time, I'm in a place with a relationship where it's good and healthy. And it's funny if anyone tried to like talk shit or gossip or whatever, not that she would listen, but she knows more than anybody else ever would and probably wanted to know, but still's there and loves me. So was that like with the missus a conversation where it's like, hey, I kind of had some of these mental health struggles before, I'm being vulnerable, or you work?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it was just like, I probably didn't even explain it the way I explained it here.
Sure.
Honestly. Because it was like one of those things where when I got with her, it was probably like 3 years in the past by that time.
Right.
And so it wasn't like it was more of like I definitely told her it, but like maybe not in the extent where like I remember telling her I was kind of depressed and everything like that. I was dealing with a lot. And she kind of like helped me through that because it was like my other relationship ended and then I got with her within like 6 months, honestly. Sure. And so I think whether or not she knows it, it really did. It was more like I was still going through the process of recovering probably with her, but like not into the way where I talked about it. It was just like I needed that person to talk to because maybe I didn't do that in the past relationship. Or I definitely, like, it wasn't just like the Adderall past relationship, you know what I mean? Like a lot of other stuff. But, but yeah, you know what I mean? The baggage and everything else. But it was just like with this one, it was like I had clarity on what I wanted in a relationship, you know what I mean? And so it was like I wanted to talk to her. I wanted to like see what like drove her emotions and things like that. And so I think it was cool because like, yeah, the other one ended, and then within like a year, I was dating her, and it was just cool because like she kind of, what I felt like everyone else I had dated in the past wanted to do is like, it was kind of like when you get in your life together, like kind of like what are you majoring in? What's your plan for the rest of your life? Like that type of ordeal.
Like you needed a fixing.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a toxic trait.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone was like, or like in a people like maybe past relationships were talking about marriage or something like that. And like I'm a 22-year-old kid, like they're like, when do you think we're going to be ready? I was like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, and it just people are on different levels sometimes. You know what I mean?
Well, I think sometimes too is it too often people are looking external for happiness, and I've felt this way in relationships, and I didn't really notice it until I started really working my recovery. Is like, this is my goal, this is my agenda. I'm plugging you into it.
Yeah,
you're plugging in here. My ideal, and how it's going to go, and what you're going to do, as opposed to like, hey, just. We're just gonna like love each other, like,
and see that where that leads us. Yeah, exactly. And so what my wife Lindsay kind of what I always felt she encouraged me to do because was like just like be myself and like and she would like I would like, oh, I kind of want to do this. She was like, you should do it. Like I kind of want to do this. Like she was like, oh, you should try it out. And she was never like, oh no, don't do that. Like what are we gonna do? When are we gonna do this? It was nothing like that. It was just like we were like when we first got together, I think we were both kind of probably hurt from our past relationships and bonded over that, which like I think is like a normal thing that a lot of people do when they come into new relationships, or like, you know, it's just like you're trying to fill it out, and like we both loved each other in a completely different way that we had never been loved, you know what I mean? And so the thing that I like, she never like when I asked her to marry me, I was like, you've never pressured me to be anything else, you know what I mean? And like and my whole quote to her was basically like, I didn't get her a diamond, I got her a stone. And I was like, I said something along the lines like, pressure is made from diamonds, so it wasn't right to kind of like get you a diamond, like, because I was like, you never pressured me to do anything but
to
be
myself.
Me
cry, man.
Yeah. And that's what she was like. She was like, oh wow, that was really cute. And so I was like, so like I asked her to marry me like in Joshua Tree and stuff like that. But it was just like she never was like, hey, like had this other idea of what we should be. It was just like whatever we are, and that's why like I wanted to marry her too. Was because I was like this girl has like literally like been down with me to like completely like, so when I was in 2019 I wanted to like do photography, videography, and I was like going to school to be a teacher, graduated, was going to get a credential program, taking tests, you know what I mean? And then I was kind of like I don't know if I want to do this. You know what I mean? I remember talking to her, telling her that, like, I don't know, like, and then she was just like, well, if you want to, you should just do it. Like, you should just try to, like, get into photography, videography. And I was like, yeah. And she was just like, yeah. And, like, at the time, I thought, like, a $500 camera was a lot. You know what I mean? Now that I'm into the business, I'm like, oh, my God. I wish I thought a $500 camera was cheap still. I freaking, buy lenses that are stupid expensive. But so then, what was I just saying? I'm sorry, I just lost
You're
myself.
in the photography, videography.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. So she kind of pressured me to do that. Thankfully, I had one of my best friends, Jimmy, was like, was already into photography, videography, pretty much my mentor. Kind of like learned everything I could from him. So 2019, like the last 6 months, was getting into it. We started this. We had this. I don't know if you ever saw our Day Job to Dream Job promotion. We had this video that's like.
I think so.
Yeah, that's like. It was like describe your dream job, and like it was like. At the time was make a original film series about nature. And so me and him did that for a little while. Then we're like, well, it wasn't viable to make money off of that from YouTube. You know what I mean? So we're like, well, what can we do? And we're like, well, we can do weddings. We can do things. And so it was just a trial and error process, me and him getting into the industry together. We do a lot of things separately now. But like anything if we could work together every time, we would. You know what I mean? It's just that when it's a $500 gig, it's not a lot of money.
Not a lot of way to split it up.
Yeah, exactly. So, so just her, she's always been there to tell me to just do things. So with the podcast too, you know, we was in the house in the beginning, and I'm sure she was just like, oh, it's probably just a phase. Like, we'll be fine. Like, you know what I mean? We'll go through it.
but I think that's so valuable because I don't know. I guess you could say artsy for it. I'm moved by art, whatever people want to call it. Mm-hmm. So that desire to do and create in some way, it's like one of my things when I had my first stint of sobriety before I fell off. My first sponsor, he's like, "What did you love to do as a kid that like you would just be in the zone?" It was like build Legos. He's like, sent me a Lego gift certificate. And so like my girlfriend, Cassie, she gets that. Like, you know, I'm building a Formula One car. The fucking thing's like this big. But she gets that. She gets that desire that I have to kind of create, do stuff with my mind and everything else because, you know, being in a similar situation, hey, coming out of COVID, it hit us all hard. It hit everyone. There's not anyone.
I was going crazy. My wife was still working, and I was like, but at that time I was a substitute teacher, and then I worked at a restaurant in Modesto, and like so I was just doing nothing, you know, for those 2 weeks. And like she'd go to work, come home, and be like, I baked bread. She'd like go to work, come home, like I made a whole bunch of I pickled like everything you could think of. Like she'd go to work, come home, I was just like doing like the most like crazy things, but she was always like, okay, like whatever you need to do to keep yourself going over here.
These are double pickled pickles.
I literally pickled strawberries at one point, and you might ask, why would you pickle strawberries?
Why would you pickle strawberries?
So my idea was because first off, there's a recipe online, so I was like, maybe they're good. And I ate one by itself. I was like, oh, that's not good, but it's for like a salad. So if you had like a balsamic salad, cut it up, put a couple of those on it. But like I was going ham for it in the pan.
But it affected so many people, and coming out of it and trying to figure out, okay, what to do, and like. You know, there's times of, do I do a different job that doesn't involve so much, you know, but sometimes it doesn't do us any good to simply play it safe.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, I'm a guy that can get miserable real quick.
Yeah.
With myself, not other people, but with myself.
Well, I just get in my own head, and I think everybody does, because like you have whether or not you're trying to be someone different on social media or not, like you're not always that person regardless of it, you know what I mean? And I think like, you know, everyone might think I'm like a happy go-getter all the time, you know what I mean? But like I have the mornings where I'm just like grogging, looking at my phone for probably like 3 hours. You know what I mean? Like when you're like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing right now? You know, it's like the productivity or whatever, but it's like I think we're all trying to work on ourselves and be better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a daily process, you know?
Yeah, and it's not a thing that's like, I don't think there's never going to be a moment when you're like, I got it. You know what I mean? I think that's the false hope that like with all the do-it-yourself things and things like that, it's like, well, eventually I'll just be like, okay, like I'm maybe there's some people, you know what I mean? But you know what I mean? It's like with today's world and age, it's like anxiety and depression and like screen time and just not having these conversations in person anymore. It's all like through text, through phone, booking online. It's like you don't have to do this. You don't have to have these social interactions anymore, that when you do, sometimes you just overthink it and it makes you have anxiety, and you don't realize like, wow, I don't want to go down to and make an appointment for myself in person right now or whatever. But it's like those things, like they can build up and seem like it's like a mission to do. It's like, no, you just have to go drive in your car, walk out, talk to somebody, and you have an appointment. You know what I mean? But it's just like in your head. That's what a lot of people kind of get into.
I think we get very focused in steps as opposed to results.
Yeah.
Because I know and this is something that I've talked with a couple of people about. For me, I think I became almost socially anorexic to a certain extent. Because, getting and really working my sobriety, then the pandemic hits.
Mm-hmm. And so did you say you fell back?
I fell off for one night, so I'm like 17 months. It was literally on Valentine's Day. I won't get into the story.
Yeah, no worries. But
yeah,
I just you had mentioned that, and I was like, I think I caught that right.
Yeah, so it's it's been well over a year, going on 2 years.
And it happens too.
Like, to so many people. Unfortunately for me, alcoholism wasn't something.
Do you ever listen to
Macklemore?
Any of Macklemore's songs?
Yeah, of course.
My
1 year video, if you go back and watch it on the Instagram for Knockin Doorz Down or myself, was glorious. I did the underneath and kind of a cool little montage.
He has one song. It's about him. Like he had relapsed. It was like after his other big song about being sober, getting sober, and everything like that. He ended up had relapsed. He did a show, and like a whole bunch of people were telling him like all like in the song he talks about it. They're like telling him like, oh, thank you so much. Like I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. Blah blah. And he's just like feeling like a fraud during it because like I literally like relapsed last night, basically. You know what I mean? But it's like. Sorry, I don't know where I was going with that.
No, that's good. Well, and that's the thing a lot of people do struggle with too. And I have in my couple episodes ago talking with who was Adam Jablin, and I brought up to him as a guy that he's got a cool thing called the Hero Project. Mm-hmm. Helps people kind of work through their issues in the sense of, you might have these things, but it's your job to keep them at bay. Nobody else can. You do, because they're your feelings. You have to own them. And one of them that I brought up to him was that imposter syndrome. Yeah. Because I had a sense of feeling of that, and I still do at times.
I think,
where
it's like a lot of. It's just like you feel like like I used to always say fake it till you make it. And I was like, like a big proponent of it. And recently I'm like, I guess it's not fake it till you make it, because like I'm not faking it anymore. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm just doing what I know how to do and stuff like that. But I feel like it's like one of those things where it's like you feel like you do feel like you're not, like you are an imposter to a certain extent, but it's like you're like you belong, but like it's your doubt or something.
Do I belong?
Yeah, it's like that self-doubt. It's the little voice in your head that's always like you just lay down, You don't need to do this.
That's a total bitch.
Yeah. And I think we all have like, I don't know if it's an inner bitch, you know what I mean? But we all have that like it's like you don't need to work out. You don't have to release an episode this week. You don't have to edit this right now. You still have 2 more weeks. You know what I mean? It's that head, that person in your head that you got to like control.
Yeah, that feeling of why do it? It doesn't matter to anyone else. No one's
gonna know.
No one. Yeah, it doesn't affect. And I think it's important that you know.
Yeah.
So you need to do it, and that's the thing that I've had to work on is. Oh, I know. I feel bad. I did talk about it here. I worked an event. I was doing ring announcing for an MMA thing. And my drink, so nobody brings me anything.
Were you sorry.
Go ahead.
Were you the, the person who says each name?
Yeah.
Or the people who are like talking about the fight?
Yeah, there's no televised stuff.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
so you're just the person in there.
Yeah,
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, the Michael Buffer.
Yeah, Michael and Bruce Buffer. You're trying to...
Let's get ready to... I won't say it so they don't sue.
Yeah. It's time! That's his brother.
It's time! I get a tonic with lime, just tonic water with lime.
Gotcha.
Well, they brought me a vodka tonic
because they were probably like, this guy's probably wants a vodka.
It was busy, whatever. Somebody grabbed the wrong thing, whatever. These people actually they know who I am. But so, anyways, take a big swig. There it is. Like, oh my gosh! And luckily, my brain, and this is one of the things in recovery we talk about. Watch this one right here, people. This is important to you. The restored to sanity. So my brain quickly played out, no one will know. The people that are around me right now don't know. The other people that do know I'm an alcoholic, they're already a little buzzed anyways. They won't remember or notice.
Yeah.
I could totally get away with this and just say, I'm running late. I'll be home at whatever time. And it played out that quick of how quickly my life would go to shit that it was like I don't even remember walking over, throwing it in the trash. So that's that restored to sanity piece that if you hear people talk about it within addiction. So for me, it was that, I'll know factor. I'll know. I'll know the guilt. I'll know the shame. Even if I got away with it. It's like in my recovery and sobriety, I want to abandon I could get away with it because it's such a shitty place to live.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but you don't want it like for yourself. That's what I'm saying. Like you realize all those things, and I mean, I'm not trying to relate this to like video editing, but for me, that's for me, it's like one of those things where it's like maybe I'm using there's a thing like warp stabilizer. It stabilizes your thingies, and every now and then for some reason it gets choppy or whatever, and I throw it, like I'll do real estate videos sometimes, and I'll throw it in, and I'll like export it, and I've already uploaded it to the drive, told the person that's there, then I'm rewatching it like on my phone or something like that, and I'm watching it and I see a point of it, and it starts lagging or messing up or whatever, and the person probably is not going to know that it does that, but for me, I'm like, I don't want someone, like I have the instant fear of like, I don't want someone else to see this, to think that I'm okay with doing like not the best type of job or whatever, but it's like I have like those things that play on my mind, and I'm like, even though I don't want to open up this program, wait 15 more minutes to render, it's like I need to do the best I can for the client or for the people, but it's the same thing for yourself. You're like, I need to do what I can that's best for myself, you know what I mean? And I think that's really good that you do have that even realization that like, hey, like you say it played out so quickly for you.
Well, and it's important, just that part of owning our shit.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to just simply put it out there, the truth as is. There are many things that people won't know, but it's about doing the right thing when no one's looking.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day. And I think when you start to do that more and more, you feel better about yourself, and your relationships start to get better. I don't just mean like you with marriage, but the people that are around you, because you kind of just give off a different vibe, different purpose, different energy, and everything else, you know?
No, I agree.
So it's like if the ship goes down, at least I was sailing the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. And not like, not the thrown overboard, huh? Since that was the analogy.
Right? Yeah, abandoned ship. I'll dress as a woman, get in the life raft. We're not those guys.
No, I got you. And so for you, like this has kind of always been around.
That was a Titanic joke, not a gender joke, people.
Yeah. But so for you kind of have always dealt with like some type of mental health, addiction, recovery, and like that's kind of what you wanted to, by starting this podcast, you kind of wanted to show people that that like, hey, like we all struggle, we all deal with things, and like is that kind of what drove you to?
What I found, so with Carlos Vieira, of course, his book, Knockin Doorz Down, and talking with him, and then when I read it, and somebody helped me realize this recently, and I don't remember if I posted a video already on the Instagram about it, sharing it, but we all have a story. You have a story, I have a story, and in taking our story, being vulnerable, sharing it with others, that we've had our adversities, and most of us turn it into our advantage. Like you're a diligent. I've seen you work, dude. Like a buddy of ours, Scotty, that you were doing his video. You're there filming stuff, and you got like steady cam stuff. You're in and out of the theater. Then when I see the final product, I think your brain, had you have maybe continued down the path, maybe you wouldn't have been able to be who you were. Yeah. So you had, like you said, you're grateful to have gone through that. Like I'm grateful. To have gone through alcoholism and these other things.
Well, it's crazy because when I was 18, I did want to get into photography and videography. Sure. And I remember like telling my parents that for one reason or another. Stuff got, I just never did it, basically. Right. And then it was like, I kind of came to me, and I was like, well, like, and that's what I thought. So I was 26 at the time, and I was like, well, I'm 26 now. Like, it's not like too late to where like I can't like learn a new skill and try to do it. And like since January of this year, I've been doing it full time, which is like such a blessing, because like I'm only like it'll be 3 years. It's coming up on 3 years of even like touching a camera, getting involved in it. You know what I mean? Right. And so and it's just wild to me that like I'm doing this full time now for other people. It's something that like I didn't think was possible. Granted, now comes like all the other business aspects. It's like I learned the skills and everything, which is like great, but it's like I had the realization this year was like, oh, I'm running a business. Like you know what I mean? Like you gotta be on top of your shit. And so it's like recently I've been dealing with a little bit of that anxiety and the stuff of just like saying maybe yes to too many jobs, or saying, and then having a lot to edit, and then trying to figure out the financial portions of it all. And so it's like this other thing that's coming on, you know what I mean? And I think it's, but I'm always self-aware of it now. I'm always like, okay, like I have stuff on my, like, at least I do have like a monthly calendar. I'm not the best on my weekly calendar, but like of shit I need to get done list, I have that. But I don't know, I'm thankful for it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think it's, our adversities make our story, our story becomes our superpower when we share it because it can enhance others and they can relate. Because who knows? There's a young man, woman, non-binary, I don't care, whatever, here's what you've got to share, a little bit of knowledge, your little bit of struggle, my bit of struggle. And, all of a sudden they go, wow, I'm not alone in this. And, whoa, they achieved things, and then, they can use it as some kind of fuel. So it becomes almost this thing that lives beyond us. Yeah. And the ultimate gift is when someone comes back, and it's important to do with people, like, tell them. Yeah, tell people. Like, if somebody helped you, gave you an idea, whatever the hell it is, say, hey, man, you may not know this or whoever, but thank you, because we need to hear it. Like, I really enjoyed the podcast you did with your wife because it showed so much of personality from both of you.
It's like, you might think, and that's that's how we talk to each other, like at home and stuff. Like, I mean, we obviously are a little more like, we have pet names and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But it's not like when we're in public, it's like you might just think we're friends, or who knows that that's my sister or something, you know what I mean? The way that we're like interacting with each other. Right. But like, so like you were saying, like, you're so glad that we're so glad these things, I was so glad these things happened because it led me on the path that I am today. Yep. Like, and I think about that with the podcast. Like, I don't think I would have started a podcast even if my life, like, if I would have gone to videography and photography when I was like 18, 19, my whole life would be different. Like, I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have, I wouldn't have done all these different things. And so I'm always grateful for the path that it led. And like the fact that when I started my podcast, I was like, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I bought all the wrong gear on Amazon, but that's what I knew I had to do if I wanted to start it. I was like, if I buy this stuff, spend money, then I'll have to do it. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things. And so like that's how I got into my podcast. Was like, all right, I'm going to like kind of force myself. And I was like, originally it was going to be trail talks and whatnot, and it was going to be all about hiking because I used to hike a lot, and I haven't been hiking at all this past year, but it was just one of those things where I was like, I know I need to throw myself because I want to do it. And like, if I could see from when I was starting in my room from the first episode to like what I do now, I would have thought like, oh man, I must be really doing well, like, for this podcast, you know what I mean? And that's what I like tell people, like you never know like what's like on the other side of the camera or on the things like that, or who the person is, you know what I mean? And so like for me, when I started the podcast, I didn't know what I was doing. After the first 5 episodes, I kind of sat back and I was like, wait, what's the point of this? Like, why am I starting a podcast? Why should people even care to listen? Like, what is going on? And that's kind of where I came up with like my tagline. It's about talented people who live within the Central Valley of California, as well as people in general who are passionate about what they do. Because like, when people think of California, they think of LA, they think of San Francisco, they might think of NorCal, but they don't think about the Central Valley. And the Central Valley is a huge area, you know what I mean? It's basically from Bakersfield to like Yuba City, you know what I mean? And like maybe Yuba City and Sacramento don't think they're the Central Valley, but if you look on the map, literally the valley, the actual valley is all the way up until like past Yuba City, you know what I mean? And so it's just this huge area of people that like often get looked over for no reason. And I think what the reason is the fact that we have Bay Area, we have LA. So when you think of California, you think about those places, you know what I mean? And like, but majority of like all the people who live in the valley, it's like when they think about California, they think about like that, you know, the Central Valley. It's like, you know, it's farmland. It's like small towns. It's cool, unique towns. It's the mountains. It's things like that. And so I kind of wanted to bring light and tell people like, hey, like, we may have gotten a bad rep for a little while, and like maybe some deservingly, some not deservingly. You know,
there's
what I mean?
More open-mindedness than you think.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like there's so many like gems hidden within the valley. You know, tiny towns that used to exist. Like even what's it called? I can't think of it. There's a cemetery. Old cemetery. I did a Western there. Why can't I think about this? Where it was, this is going to bug me so much. Hornitos. Yeah. Gosh. Like a little town of Hornitos, like Hershey's, or either Hershey's or Gardelli. One of them, I think it's Gardelli. Like they had a factory there in the middle of this like town in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean? But like there's like so much history in these areas, and like it just gets overlooked. Like, and like we have so many talented artists, talented rappers, talented musicians, talented teachers, mayors, political figures, actors. Yeah, George Lucas is from Modesto, like, you know, and Jeremy Renner. Like, you know, we have so many, and athletic people like Josh Allen, like, you know what I mean? We have like all these cool, talented people, but it's like, oh, you're from California, they instantly think you're from LA Bay Area, but it's like, no, like those people weren't raised like you're thinking they were raised, you know what I mean? And I want to bring awareness that like, hey, we have just as much to offer as everywhere else. And like, it's like, to me, it's like it's a missed market in California. Like, how are you going to focus so much on where like all those people live, but then you have like, you know, tens of millions of people who live like within the valley who aren't getting marketed for anything. You know what I mean? I'm like, and I always think I'm like, that's like a good market to have because like you're getting like LA, you have a lot, Bay Area, you have a lot, but you're missing the rest of California.
Well, and what I enjoy about what you do is some people, it sucks here, it sucks here. Well, you want to live in a beautiful place. Yeah. Well, why don't you be a part of helping it become that?
Yeah,
it's just exactly.
That and that's why people on my podcast who are actively doing stuff in the community. Sometimes people hit me up and they're like, hey, we want to start this thing. We're thinking about doing it on your podcast. I'm like, well, no, it isn't like, you don't want to like, you have to like my whole, the way, like, and people always ask like, how do you get on your podcast? You know what I mean? And it's like more just like the serendipity of it. Like, I mean, I look at what people are doing within the community and for themselves and for like, you know, it's just one of those things where if it happens, it happens, but it's not like, hey, we want to set something up and get somebody on. It's like, it doesn't work like that. It's more of like, if I see you doing something and it brings my attention, then I want to get you on, then you come on. Or if it's like somebody hits me up and I've never met this person, seen them, I go see what they're doing, and I'm like, oh man, they're super active in the community. It's like that's what I want. I like to see people who are actively doing things for themselves, not because they want to. They're like, oh, I want to like. I'm a rapper, I want to get on your podcast. You know what I mean? Right. It's not that. It's like, what are you doing as a rapper for the community, for the area? You know what I mean?
Yeah, a lot of people are rappers.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And like in my first 20 episodes I had, or like maybe 25 episodes, I had like 10, I don't know, I had like a lot of rappers on. And I was like, oh shit, I don't want to become just the rap podcast. You know what I mean? And that's when I kind of like went away from it for a little while. And I've been going back to it, you know what I mean now? I just didn't want to like be put in the box of like, like this guy just music.
Well, it's pretty cool. Somebody's become a buddy that you've worked with here that talks a lot about mental health, PTSD, Terrell Green.
Oh, yeah, Terrell.
I mean, just Uncle Earl, all of his characters. Trust me, if you have not heard of Terrell Green, just hilarious short videos, minute max. But recently went and spoke at Fresno, Fresno Pacific. It's one of the universities or four-year colleges, and here he is. You know, he's giving back where he came from. So I'm with you. But we could wax poetic forever. Tell people how they can find you and all that stuff before we get to random questions.
All right, you guys can find me at Central Valley Podcast. Got my account back after it got hacked. So
I reported.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you. So at Central Valley Podcast, if you want to see any of my work, you can go micahdiele.com, and that's MICAHDIELE.com. On YouTube, type in Central Valley Podcast, type in Real Talk and Whatnot, either of those, and I'll be the first thing to come up. And that just like support. I'm just trying to grow my YouTube, you guys. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers eventually.
All right, random questions for you. Pet peeves. You're such a funny guy. But something's got to annoy the shit out of you.
I like sometimes it's like personal space, like randomly, like it's like I get like on my side of the bed type of deal. Like sometimes like I'll be like on my side, but I'm like at the edge of my side, and my wife will come up and she'll like want to like, and I like being a little spoon. I'll say, I like being a little spoon, but like she'll come up and she'll come like and hug me, and I'm like, can you not? And she's like, why? And I'm like I'm already at the edge, so like I feel like I'm getting pushed off my edge of the bed, so like scoot back, and then I'll scoot, but then I want to scoot back so much, so I have a whole bunch of room on my side, and she doesn't like it. And that's like one of my pet peeves. I'm trying to think what else. I don't know.
You want to know the defense to that?
Yeah.
You just go into like a V shape, like really put your ass towards her, because it works different. When women do it, we're like, oh. Yeah. Men do it, it's like, oh, he might fart.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
Clear you out some space.
But I think that's about it. I mean, I think I get. I don't know. Not too much. I don't know. Yeah, but now you say, I'm sure there's something when I leave here, I'm going to be like, that's my pet peeve. You know what I mean? But it's definitely not people interrupting me or anything like that, because I interrupt people far too often. You know what I mean? So that might be other people's pet peeve.
So you're not a hypocrite either.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. Yeah.
You could have dinner with one person, living or not. Who is it?
Living or not? I think I would want to pick someone not living and like somebody back in honestly on history. Like I think like Teddy Roosevelt, somebody like that, who there's so many tales about them. You know what I mean? And I've never like thought like about this question, nor would I think that my answer would be Teddy Roosevelt. You know what I mean? But I think he would be a good person, because there's like so many like old folklore about like him as president, and like there's always like pictures of him with the shirt off and guns and stuff like that. I'm like, he just probably has some like wild stories to tell.
Yeah, because he was still still, I'm part of the cavalry. You're the president.
And there's people, and like during like Lewis and Clark was like during his time going to see what else was America like. So it was like they're like bushwhacking and everything like that. And like that'd probably be a very, very interesting one. Right before that, my mind was like, well, Hitler would be interesting too.
Yeah.
Like just you know what I mean? Because like you want to figure out like what like I like to like imagine having a podcast like with one of these guys, and then
I couldn't paint the tree, so I said I would. Yeah. We had another gentleman on, Dr. Rob Kelly, and we had asked him that, and that's what he said. And he goes, "Wait, hold up, people. The reason being, is look at how powerful the guy was to get a country to follow these things and this mindset,
this ideology that like seems so foreign now, but it was only like 80 years ago. You know what I mean? Or I don't know, however long."
Yeah, It
was like 40s?
80, 40, well, 38 World War II,
exactly.
38.
Yeah.
So, but think about that, that power to...
Dude, that's why I don't know, like anybody in history like back then is just like, and then it's crazier too, because back then it's like, you had there was radio, you know what I mean? Yeah. And what you thought... You knew what was going on the radio from this 1 or 2 channels, you know what I mean? Yeah. And now we're in a society where we have literally millions of podcasts, like thousands upon thousands of millions of shows, you know what I mean? Like, and there's so much stuff to consume that it's like hard to decipher what's real, what's not. Where back then it's like whatever they're saying is real.
Sure.
Like, you know what I mean? And so it's like it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, I forget what it might have been, a history class or anthropology that I did in college, and it was the teacher brought in a copy of the newspapers from the North and the South when Abraham Lincoln was elected, and the way the headlines and the stories read, totally,
that's pretty interesting.
Like hope for our country, demise of our country. So it's like, we're in this thing.
Sounds like the tabloids today for our freaking country.
Well, in the regular news, we're coming out of this era of disinformation,
and it's sort of like every day it's like our country's falling, like on one end and the other, and it's like, oh, thank goodness our country's being saved for this reason or whatever. But it's like and there's not even anywhere that's like, oh, you can go here, and it's like they're in the middle. Like it's like you just don't know what to believe anymore. You know what I mean? That's why I think entertainment's on the rise, because everyone's like kind of like, a lot of people I think now are just like, I'd just rather not even.
Yeah, fuck you guys.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the all the stats about the economy is good. Like, fucking, you have to, maybe for a millionaire, but I have yet to find for who.
Yeah, and then it's like right now, like gas and everything. Like the inflation within the last year. I don't know, like, never in my life have, like, things got to be this expensive this quickly, you know what I mean? And it seems like within the last year, everything's been heightened and raised.
Yeah, our grocery bill's gone up. Granted, there's one more person living in the house now, but it's gone up well over $100.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, like, minuscule things maybe on one item, but when you times that by, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, 150 or however many you're going when you're buying shopping list, like it's going to add up to $150.
What do you do daily to maybe help with your mental health? Or you have any couple of practices?
I've been needing to get better at this, honestly. My whole thing is like I've been needing to get into a routine, because the thing that I struggle with now is the fact that I do photography and videography full time, and I also do my podcast, and there's no regularity in that type of field. So it might be like, I have 3 weekends off and I can do whatever I want those 3 weekends, but then I might have 4 or 5 weekends in a row where I have a gig. And then it's like, then I have a gig at 8 a.m. this day, then I don't have another gig till 5 p.m. that night, then the next day, nothing. The following day, I have 4 real estate gigs. And then it's like this balancing act that I'm trying to deal with at the moment. And so literally this morning I woke up and I just got a gym membership, because it's like I need that outlet. I know I do. So I used to run a lot, and I enjoy running, because it's like a time where like you just like have your thoughts, and then maybe you're listening to a podcast, maybe you're listening to some music, but it's still you against yourself when you're running, because you're like, everything's telling you like, no, you could just stop running right now and walk back, or you know what I mean? And so what I do find helpful when I do run is like, I run and I don't run in any route at all. I like literally go and I'm like, well, I've never been down this street. Let me go down this street. And it might be a cul-de-sac, but I'm running down it, and then I come back in. And I go, what's over here? I'm going to go over here. And I try not to look at my meter to see how far away I am from my house, till like I know like I'm a few miles away. You know what I mean? So sometimes I used to run like 1 month I ran like 100 miles. It was freaking ridiculous. But So like sometimes I like to run far enough to where it's like, oh crap, like I look at my thing, I'm like, oh, I'm 3.5 miles away from home, so now I got to run 3.5 miles back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it gives me that extra time, gives me the time to like kind of think and reorganize stuff. So what I've been lacking recently is that time for me, because I'm so like all over the place, where it's like maybe I work on my podcast in the evening a lot, you know what I mean, and then I work in the daytime for my photo and video stuff a lot. So it's like. And then my passion is also making photography and doing photography, videography for stuff that I want to do. And so I becoming full time has allowed me to like realize, oh, like I have to be able to navigate and have set time aside. And maybe my schedule is all over the place, but that doesn't mean that I shouldn't set aside 2 hours or an hour for me to have time for me to do whatever exercise I need to do. You know what I mean? And it's just about putting the time aside to do it and looking at my schedule. And so, I mean, that's what I know I need to do. You know, it's like one of those things, like I know what I have to do. And so that's why I woke up today and it's like, July was like my busiest month year to date, at least, you know what I mean? And like, it's a blessing to have, but it's also a time for me to look back, because in August, I only have a few gigs, and I'm like, I was so busy in July that I need to look back and reevaluate how I'm going to run this, you know what I mean? And I think I'm so glad I'd have the like hindsight and stuff to be able to do that. So that's like literally this week, me and my wife, that's what we're talking about. Like, let's figure out, you know, because she's coming on basically like full time to help me do this now. Yeah, just to where it's like, hey, I think if we both work on this, we can scale this up into a way that's like a lot more profitable, a lot more efficient, you know what I mean? And so it's just about, I think, having like a good support system, I guess, you know what I mean? That's what it always comes back to, is good support system. But also just like, I think just giving yourself the okay to relax, because there's always something you can do, you know what I mean? There's always something you can do. And so, well, recently it's like, sometimes it's just like I wouldn't be able to, like, I would come home to my wife when I was first doing this full time, and just like, she'd be talking to me, she'd be like, hey, like snapping her fingers, and then like, I'm just zoning out thinking about stuff that I need to do. And then, yeah, exactly. And so I think it's just about like breathing and having that moment for yourself and being okay with not doing anything. Because you always like, you're trying to meditate and then you're like, well, I could pick up my phone right now. You know what I mean? It's just like, let yourself think and let your mind wander for those 10 minutes, you know what I mean? And who knows what might happen from it. And I think that's definitely a thing, is just like having that 10 minutes of breathing every day. Whether it's, even if you are watching TV or like just not worrying about what you do worry about all day long, you know what I mean? It's just like, at the end of the day, you at your house right now, why is that interfering with everything else? You know what I mean?
I do. That's me with Legos.
Oh, so that's your time to kind of let go, right?
Or whatever. And so, something with my hands.
No, exactly. And so that's my thing too. It's like sometimes sometimes it can be watching TV. It can be doing something. It might be doing yard work, picking up my dog's shit. Like, my wife's gonna listen to this and be like, "Yeah, fucking right. Like, you ever do that?" But it's the thing that came to my mind right now. You know what I mean? But the thing is, it doesn't have to be anything specific that you do. It's just time for yourself to reacclimate to it. And so sometimes for me, it's like going through my hard drive and editing a photo that's for fun, because so often I don't edit. I mean, maybe I'm having fun doing it, but it's not for fun. It's for a client. You know what I mean? So it's like one of those things where it's like recently I've been having to go back to, I'm like, why did I like fall in love with photography, videography? Because I've been doing so many stuff for so many clients that I haven't done anything for myself besides the podcast. And so it's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm busy and that's good, but like, maybe I'll be growing even more if I take some time to like once a month make a video for myself. You know what I mean? And so it's like those things that I'm coming to a realization after doing it basically, you know, half the year I've done it full time for half the year. So this is really like my reflection time of like, okay, like how do I want to progress through the next part of the year? Yeah.
One last random question for you.
What we got? That other one, the last one of asking about one having dinner with one person.
If really you could have, all right,
here we go.
One last random question. If you could, if you were on a deserted island, you had one movie and one music album, what would they be?
All right. Well, movie. If anybody out there knows me, they know that I fucking love Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one.
Oh, hell yeah.
So, first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, probably. And if it wasn't that, it'd be National Treasure. I used to like those are like my childhood movies that I just grew up.
You got two great characters.
That and then The Dark Knight. Like those are like the three that growing up that I was like the repeated movies that you watch. You know what I mean? So, but I'll go Pirates of the Caribbean, and one album. Man, I'm trying to think of something that I don't get tired of. You know what I mean? Because there's some things that you just even that you play out.
You pick some really interesting 3 movies. So you either got like Jack Sparrow, or you got Nick Cage.
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
I'm gonna get you off this island.
Or say hi to your mother for me.
Or you got swear to me. Come on.
Yeah. 3 polar.
Get off that island.
Polar different.
Brilliant movies. They're all very great directors too.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing too. That like when I go back, I'm like, it's interesting now because I appreciate stuff that I maybe didn't notice when I was younger.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But music, man. I'm trying.
One artist. Go with one artist.
One artist. Right now, I really like this guy named Freddie Gibbs. Freddie Gibbs is a really cool rapper. I would say probably him. I'm gonna say Freddie Gibbs, just because, him or Dom Kennedy. Those are 2 rappers that I really enjoy. Once I'm just naming multiple. You're like, what one person? I'm like, I'm telling you 3. No, but I'll go Freddie Gibbs. He just has a really cool flow to his music. It almost sounds effortless, and that he doesn't try a lot, but it just sounds so like authentic and like not like it's. When it's a catchy song, it's not that it's catchy in an annoying way, you know what I mean? It's just like, I could hear the song playing over and over. So it's a Freddie Gibbs and Pirates of the Caribbean.
All right.
And that's what
That works. If you could leave any of the listener with any just kind of advice, what might you throw?
Yeah, I do this. I used to do this in my podcast. I used to always ask, what's the best piece of advice you've been given? And then I realized, I was like, well, I don't even know what I would say in that scenario. But what I would say is I always tell people that if you're thinking about doing something, and look at this camera, if you're thinking about doing something and you're kind of scared to do it, I would just say jump in because, you're not getting any younger, and we live in a society in a day and age where like I literally have my own show right now. Like, and I think it's like a mix of a late night show. It's a mix of a podcast, but just do what you want to do and don't worry about what other people say. Don't worry about what your best friend's opinions are because like people just hate on stuff or they're like, really? You know what I mean? And that one person going like, you really want to do that could set you on the wrong path. You know what I mean? Or could set you to not want to try what you want to do with your life. So I'd say just if you have an idea, have a goal, go for it because if you fail, it's okay. Failures are part of life. And the more failures they have, the more you learn and the better you have of adapting and overcoming what may happen in the future of your life. So I would say just keep at it, and that's the best advice I could be giving.
This podcast contains the views and opinions of the Knockin Doorz Down hosts and their guests to the show. The content here should not be taken as medical advice. The content here is for informational purposes only. And because each person is sharing their unique perspective, please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. Views and opinions expressed in the podcast and website are our own and do not represent that of our places of work. While we make every effort to ensure that the information we are sharing is accurate, we welcome any comments, suggestions, or correction of errors. Privacy is of the utmost importance to us. For those wishing anonymity, people, places, and scenarios mentioned in the podcast have been changed to protect confidentiality at the request of certain guests. This website or podcast should not be used in any legal capacity whatsoever, including but not limited to establishing standard of care in a legal sense or as a basis for expert witness testimony. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on the podcast or website. In no way does listening, reading, emailing, or interacting on social media with our content establish a doctor-patient relationship. If you find any errors in any of the content of this podcast or blogs, please send a message through the contact page. This podcast is owned by KDD Media Company.